Well, there we go. Hello, everyone. I hope you saw that music, and I hope we're live. This is Steve and Justice again with Sport Talk. I hope some of you, and I know some of you have, whether it's on the regular podcast, A Better Life, New York, Sports Talk, or you've heard it or saw it on YouTube. I know we've had some followers, even though, once again, I haven't been able to uh, advertise it ahead of time. I don't know why I just hit the wrong buttons and I was busy today, so I couldn't do it. Justin, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Steve.
So we got great response from our last one, and I know with vacations, I'm away, he's away, kind of things. We haven't been doing it, but we're looking to do it every other Monday at 6 o'clock for a half hour, 45 minutes during the football season. Maybe we'll do it a little more, but we'll try to get it up on Facebook and other places so it can be advertised and seen. I don't know what topics you want to start on tonight, but I know what has been a something and we've talked about, and it's been in my craw, is this unbelievable abuse. I won't even say use. I'm going to change it to abuse of analytics with the New York Yankees. It
Oh,
seems like a joke.
I'm
It
disgusted.
it seems like some computer is spitting out what to do, and they're not. So what do
Well,
you think of all that?
yeah, this started in 2005 with the analytics for the Yankees after they lost in '04.
Right.
Um, George acquiesced and figured, that they needed to switch or at least head down the road of analytics and get away from what they were traditionally doing, which is using the eyeball test and spending money and getting players in and shipping off the ones that can't play. And in the last 10 years, you've seen the culmination of that with, Michael Fishman heading that department, who is, I believe, assistant general manager as well. Um, he's got 20 people working for him, and the product on the field, it's not what we're used to seeing as Yankee fans. And it dictates who plays, when they play, how much they play. Um, and also, the Yankees almost lost Aaron Judge because of analytics. The analytics department, has their threshold for money. And I guess, with the structure of the fake salary cap in baseball, the luxury tax actually, that, they have money that they allow for certain time for players, for length of contract and all that stuff. Their number was, less than what Judge got paid. And Cashman stood firm on that. And it was Hal who came in at the last minute and made the deal happen. Otherwise, Judge would be playing out west right now for San Francisco, most likely. Um, so that in and of itself is a problem because if you're going to use analytics, then you have to stick to it. And the Yankees don't do that. And I'm not trying to justify it because I can't stand it. Does it have its place? It certainly has its place, but you could look at the Yankees lineup. It changes day in and day out. The top 6 guys in the lineup wrote, they don't leadoff hitter, it changes every day. Who's hitting in the 2 hole, it changes every day. Judge is your 3 hitter when he's healthy. Stanton's batting 4th or 5th. It fluctuates, it's up, it's down, who's playing what position, and it's all analytics driven. It's metrics driven analytics. And it just doesn't it doesn't pass the litmus test for me because one, they don't have enough talent to be who they are supposed to be. And analytics is telling them to go get these guys. That these guys look at the guys that they just brought in. I mean, analytics said, yeah, these are the guys that we need. So they brought 7 guys in. 5 of them, I think, are on the roster, which means that, you know, 20% of your roster was no good. You had to get rid of 5 guys and bring 5 new guys in. And you wanted to sell us on this team returning to the World Series. To me, that's, it's egregious. It's embarrassing. It's, it's unfair to the fans that, have season tickets and pay all this money. They expect to see a winner. We're not, the Miami Marlins. We're not, you know, the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're not Cleveland. This is New York.
So it starts if you take a step back, and this is going to be an issue next year because I believe the Major League Baseball contract is up in 26, and there's a lot of talk that Major League Baseball is the only team out of the big three. Let's put hockey aside for now, that does not have a hard salary cap. For instance, the New York Mets are spending $323 million, where the Miami Marlins are paying $67 million. So, I mean, and there's a ridiculous disparity in major league teams, Major League Baseball teams,
Yeah,
and excuse me, it's partially because of this tax system. And what's even weirder is that the there's a tax system, so people that are spending more over the limit, whatever that limit is for this year, are paying a tax, and that tax is paid to the league, and then the league channels that money to weaker teams, to weaker market teams. Obviously, the television contracts in New York City are different than the television contracts in St. Louis, right?
correct.
So the money is made. It's not like the NFL where all monies are pooled.
Yeah, there's no revenue sharing.
There's no revenue sharing in Major League Baseball. So there's this tax system, and the money's going to the lesser teams, and the intention was for those teams to spend it on payroll. And in essence, a lot of teams are putting that money right in their pocket.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that
egregious. That
pure profit.
that shouldn't be allowed. Also, they're spending money to make it look like they're spending money, like Oakland signing Severino to a huge contract, who nobody else even wanted the guy. Um, so you have a clear faulty system that has to be changed. It has to be addressed. You also have, in the middle of all this, they're still looking to expand. And, you know, looking at the product on the field, you already have guys that can't play the sport. There's, it's one thing when you have a team that's a small market and they have to bring up their young guys and they're trying to, develop talent so that they can compete. But other teams not having the ability to fill out their roster, they're talking about expanding the roster so they can have more arms in the bullpen. It's all about making more money. And that's a whole different avenue to go down. But right now, baseball on the whole is a terrible product because of the way it's structured. And you've also got veteran players that can't get paid or that don't last. Look at someone like Anthony Rizzo. He's only 33 or 34 years old. He's not an old ball player. All right, maybe he's past his prime, but let's not forget he got hurt. He came back from the injury. The Yankees, they completely mishandled that. But someone like that should still be playing baseball. I can't imagine that he's unhealthy to the point where he can't play baseball better than some of the options you see out there right now, and that's across the league. So they have to do something about it because if they're going to expand, the product has to get better. It's already watered down, in my opinion. When you see, or when you do the math, you figure there's only a few hundred guys on the whole planet that can play that sport at that level at any given moment, and they're below that line right now with the level of talent some of these guys are putting out on the field.
True. True. And that's going on in a lot of places in baseball. And um, this idea, and maybe we should bring more players in from the Dominican Republic, from South America, from other places, because those would be great. And also in Japan.
You raise
Um,
a good point because you know I was just in the Dominican last month, and they have about 20 or 22 facilities there. Major League Baseball has facilities there, and they're clearly trying to cultivate, you know, a pipeline, I guess, of talent. Um, I think you're also, you know, dealing with things like specialization at the lower level here in the United States. So when you have a little league and your town has 100 players or so many players. You have a few little league teams. Maybe you have to play cross town depending on how your municipality is set up, whatever. Um, a lot of kids are not playing baseball that were playing baseball 20 and 25 years ago. And, you know, um, I think it was CC Sabathia that mentioned, someone like him wouldn't have the opportunity to play today that he had all those years ago because, the specialization has taken kids out of the programs that were there and moved them into, you know, let's face it, you got to have money to play travel sports, right? They create these leagues for whatever reason. One guy wants his kid to get more playing time, or they just want to win games and feel like they're somebody. But it's taken away from people that don't have access to the sport anymore. And, kids that used to be able to play baseball in the cities, baseball's dying on that level. And that's why Major League Baseball is moving out and branching out and looking for other places to get athletes from. And at the college level, most of the kids that get scholarships and move up from high school to college have played in these travel leagues and, specialized leagues where, they get the best players from the 3 or 4 surrounding towns, and they make a super team, and they travel to play teams from other towns and other counties and other states, and a lot of talent is being, just it's not getting the opportunity to play. So you have a disparity now where kids that are not necessarily talented have been through the program and paid their dues, but they're not really good ball players. They're just not, and it shows. You could see it on the field today. You could somebody like Anthony Volpe, who I still can't believe won a Gold Glove. He's beyond struggling. He's hitting below 218 or 214, whatever he was at. He had this little mutt run where maybe they lit a fire under his ass and he hit like 5 home runs in a week or whatever, 10 days. But he's clearly not built to play this sport at this level for a long period of time. Whereas years ago, maybe he catches on as a utility infielder. He's a bench player. He's a role player, you know, and I know he won a gold glove, but the guy can't hit worth a lick. And we went from all these foreign born players just 25, 20 years ago, and you saw all these shortstops coming through that were Nomar Garcia Parra and guys like Ray Ordonez, A Rod. I mean, the Omar Vizquel, the list goes on. You're not seeing that anymore.
Right.
So, I think it's a combination of Major League Baseball trying to save money at certain areas, but also they're funneling these players through because, they don't want to pay these high salaries. They want to make more money. They have shareholders now. The Yankees are essentially a portfolio that they have to answer to their shareholders. So, where the Yankees were spending money in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were paying guys like Tim Raines, Cecil Fielder, Darryl Strawberry. They went out and got Canseco for that last run in 2000, which they didn't need him. But, they had guys coming off the bench that were veteran players making money. They don't have that anymore. And you're not going to see that across the
They
board.
had that older player talent. I mean, whether it was Darryl Strawberry, whether it was, um, and not just hitters, you also had pitchers.
Yeah, they could go out and get arms and bring guys in. They brought in, veteran arms for their bullpen for their playoff runs that other teams, they scrambled to find arms. And yeah, that kind of created
I mean,
analytics because teams like Oakland had to go find a way to compete and they did a good job. But with everybody on analytics now, it's kind of watered everything down. And the Yankees that have the money to spend, regardless of whether they want to go over that threshold or not, they're not spending the money the way they used to. And I think that also tells you that they don't believe in their own product because, we did see them go out and get Rizzo and Gallo and just a few years ago. And I think that they thought that they were on a run. I think that's their model now to see where they are, and then maybe they'll make a splash in the free agent or at the trade deadline. But I just think year in and year out, you're not going to see them. I mean, Judge has been on the field for 10 years now. He's played yeah, he's played 9 seasons. The first year when he came up in September, if you don't wanna count that, but he's been a Yankee for 10 years, and they've only really made one big effort to go out and put a team on the field and surround him with the talent that he needs to take the next step. And I'll probably take criticism for that. That's fine. This is not the same Yankees that they were even 15 years ago.
Well, that's true, but so some of those things have to do with the changes in the game, right?
Oh yeah,
The changes in the game. Pitchers are trying to throw over 100 miles an hour. Everybody has multiple Tommy John surgeries. Um, it's a different thing. And when you think about it, there are guys back in the day. Bob Feller is one we've probably talked about before. Warren Spahn, those guys. They pitched complete games almost every time,
and they threw 100 miles an hour.
and they threw fast. They tell you they didn't throw as hard. The radar guns were different.
It was different. It's explained in the movie or documentary Fastball. If you do the math, those guys were definitely throwing as hard as guys can throw today,
I mean, it's
if
hard to
not harder.
it's hard to believe that people throw harder now than before because baseball was such a science. You lived, eat, and breathed baseball back then. You
And there
traveled
were far
on
less teams back then.
right. You traveled on trains, not airplanes. You
Yeah.
didn't fly first class. The money wasn't as good. Maybe it was a little bit better than certainly playing football at the time. But in that Bob Feller year, I always say Bob Feller because one, I met him a couple of times, and he had so many wins, and he used to laugh on what prima donnas pitchers were, and when he was alive, the pitchers were less of prima donnas than they are now.
And they pitched on 3 days rest.
They pitched on 3 days rest, complete games,
Vastly different approach these days.
and
And
I'll give you that certainly in their era the um, pitching mound was 6 inches higher, right? It was reduced whatever in 66, 67
in the 60s.
for, I mean, basically for the dominance of what is this? I
They
can't think
wanted
of,
to create more offense.
yeah. And, um, that went on and on and on. And now, uh, I think the ball, though it may be being thrown harder, it has less motion than ever before. That people are more concerned with throwing the ball, and the
Yeah.
ball's totally different. Matter of fact, it's different all the time. Certainly every year it's different. Whether it's different during the season is a whole nother story. I have no idea, but I hear those stories as everyone does.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably harder if you compare the two, but it's still the hardest thing to do in sports is hit a fastball, regardless of that 6-inch difference. But um, you know, it's so specialized today, and you just don't see the grit and toughness and guys battling. For me, call me a purist or a traditionalist, but I want to see a guy that can go 9 innings. Those are the most exciting games back in the day. I mean, Jack Morris pitched 10 innings in a World Series game. You know, if I remember, that was Game 7. And what could be more exciting than that? Can this guy finish? Can he get there? Can he drag this team across the finish line? I want to see that. Now you pay somebody $36 million a year, and the guy can't go past the sixth inning. At that point, why even pay to have a starter? Just put 15 guys in the bullpen that can throw hard and just see what happens. Let them pitch 3 innings apiece. You can pay him $4 million a year. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't really have a understanding of where pitching's going. I mean, you get high school and college kids that are having Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think that happens because they have some talent. I mean, there's probably a number of factors, right? Some of them have parents that think that they're gonna be the next Nolan Ryan or Tommy John, I guess, and they want the kid to have the surgery. Go ahead, throw your arm out. We'll get surgery. You'll come back even stronger. To me, that's an abuse. Um, the athletes that I played with growing up, the really good ones, they played multiple sports. They played football, basketball, baseball. They ran track. They could throw. They could run. They could jump. They could do everything. They didn't specialize. They didn't throw their arms out. They weren't having Tommy John surgery. They weren't. They played through injury even in high
Right.
school. Now, and I understand that there's a different book on that now to the betterment or for the health of the kids. Like that I get. I don't expect kids to be walking around with, concussion. If they're banged up, they're banged up. They got to get them off the field. But it feels like there was a toughness then that doesn't exist now. And if you just have raw talent, you don't have to be tough. You can just be talented and not have to play by the rules as everybody else. And because they don't put the work in or the time or they don't have that toughness, it's the same thing. Everybody on that level has talent. So what are you going to do to make yourself better than the next guy, stand out so you can get that contract? And now it just seems like there's too many fallback crutches for players at that level. And there seems to be a matter of factness about it that didn't exist before.
Right. So you wonder. I mean, there's certainly more traveling teams and extra teams than there were when I was a kid. There may have been one traveling team, but I think you had to be older to be on it. When I was in
Yeah,
grammar
now you've got
school
a travel team for every age group.
and middle school, I played baseball, high school, whatever you want to say. I mean, I played baseball and football, and I wasn't good well, I was good at baseball, but I wasn't good at football at all. I couldn't even remember the plays, considering I have a photographic memory. Um, it's pretty interesting, and I was an offensive tackle, which was pretty coveted at the time, but, um, the it just seems that everything all at once plan is really just not working, and I think that when we're talking about back to analytics, when we're talking about analytics, I mean, listen, we've all seen Moneyball. We've all seen how he made a team or read the book, how he made a team out of nothing and how that is. But realize at that time, none of the other teams were using analytics.
Nobody else was doing it. They
Right.
invented it.
They invented it.
Well, I
Uh,
think it
MIT
was
guy.
already there. They went
Right.
from, they took a page out of the fantasy baseball page and applied it to real life baseball. And it did work to an extent.
It did, but it doesn't work on on playoff. And I
And
think
they also had three young, talented arms in their rotation that they hadn't yet paid. You know, so Hudson, Mulder, and Zito all went somewhere else.
it's correct. And they're all really good. I mean,
Yeah,
any team would take either one of them, right? It did,
yeah,
matter of fact.
absolutely,
It did, matter of fact.
absolutely.
So, I just looked briefly at something you told me about, and I wasn't aware, is not to move to another topic, but teams moving into cryptocurrency. And
Yeah.
it seems to be on multiple levels. People can
So
fans can buy things with cryptocurrency. People um are paying players somewhat with cryptocurrency, some teams.
yeah, some players have requested part of their salaries be paid in crypto. Um, Aaron Rodgers, uh, Odell Beckham had it done. I know Brady was involved with FTX, and there was a scandal there because there was what was that guy's name?
Yeah, I forget his name too,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I
saying
know
some
we all
Ted.
know
Yeah,
we all know what you mean. The guy
um,
with the crazy hair.
and I think the first guy to do it was Russell Okung. He had part of his salary paid in Bitcoin. He probably made out on that deal because back then Bitcoin was still, I think, in the teens. So
Right.
that guy's super loaded now. Um, but the Dolphins, I think, were the first ones to allow their fans to buy merchandise with crypto, and they, I think, did that 2019 or 2020. Um, I'm kind of shocked though because some of these owners are the same players. Um, that you would expect to hear their names among when you talk about things like BlackRock or entities like BlackRock. Um, and these giant corporations that move tremendous amounts of money through Bitcoin and through the crypto market. And it's kind of, you would, and I know that, I think it's, is it Tops? One of the companies is producing, um, you know, forgot what they're called, not ETFs, but
And
they NFTs.
NFTs.
NFTs. Yeah, they create NFTs with the player's likeness or their signature, and you can buy it just like trading. It's cool. I mean, I've seen some of it. I've actually bought some things, um, but it's harder to wrap my head around that than it is around cryptocurrency, because it's again, you're buying something that's not tangible. You can't really hold it. You
I don't
can't
really.
see it. You can't
I,
display it anywhere.
I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I don't understand it at all. I mean, I really don't understand it at all. I mean, you have a digital thing, you can't hang it on your wall. I don't mean to be sound stupid, but you have this digital picture, and who was in it? Was Tom Brady was into it.
Yeah. I think he did his autograph and had signed virtual signatures on certain pieces of art and pictures and whatnot. Which again, I think it's a cool thing. I think it's, opens outreach. That's why I'm a little shocked that the NFL hasn't um, used that as a means of creating more revenue, because they want to expand too. So maybe instead of expanding teams and playing more games, this is a way for them to go, because each team could have their own app. Um, the NFL could have its own app for these NFTs, and you could probably create and trade these things the same way they do all these other ones. So
I have to tell you, we keep losing you, so I can't hear you right now. Can you hear me?
other people are doing it, and other NFTs have sold for millions of dollars.
Right.
So I think you know, they could probably generate some interest there. Maybe it starts with just season ticket holders. You have the option to buy into this thing, and what a great way to start, because then you're automatically excluding people that might want to get their hands on it, and you create the market. So I don't know.
So just to let you know, your audio seems to drop out every once in a while. It
Uh,
did. It.
what? That was my phone was ringing, so I'll just have
Oh.
to. Sorry about that.
All right. Um. So yeah, that's a great point about NFTs. I don't really get it. I don't really see it going anywhere. Um, but we all know is the NFL is going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding, and you keep saying when it's going to stop. But I have to be honest with you, I thought it was going to stop some time ago, and it's never stopped.
No,
So
and they too have ruined the product. The product on the field suffers, and they're going to create even more rules to make the game safer. Uh, but it's all about, you know making the product more watchable or more attractive to tertiary markets and expanding overseas. And I think we're going to get to the point where we're watching two hand touch. That it just seems like it's headed that way. In fact, a former NFL coach told me that he expected it to go that way. So
right.
that's a little scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, now the most recent transaction, which was very interesting, is that the NFL has reached a deal with ESPN, right, where they sold the rights to the NFL channel, Red Zone, and I want to say one other thing that I can't think of, but to ESPN for 10% of ESPN's business.
Yeah, that partnership is kind of scary, because I think it's really all about the streaming, um, and they're gonna expand the market, which it's gonna shut some people out. It's gonna turn some people off. To me, why wouldn't you want your product out there you have the revenue sharing in the NFL, so it's there for your taking. But it could mean that the ratings were so low or heading in the wrong direction that they had to do something to step up uh, the watchability. It sure is to partner with ESPN because they were very standoffish with one another for a while,
Right.
um, and there seemed to be like a you know contest between the two entities of who did it better. Um, but the NFL did need to sell its product, and ESPN got in there. And listen, they ESPN does a good job. They've got a lot of talking heads. Every show talks about the NFL. The NFL is so popular that just talking about it is relevant, and people want to absorb as much content as they can about the NFL, especially when it comes to their own team.
So
And
it's
so,
funny that when um that it would seem to be that the Sunday ticket is going to be on ESPN, right? That's what's coming our way, is that
essentially,
everything's going to be ESPN. Also, what I find interesting is that Apple tried to buy the Sunday ticket before they sold it to YouTube, and part of the reason they walked away from the deal is because Apple, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but Apple, I wouldn't say implied, but at least wouldn't guarantee that they wouldn't offer the Sunday ticket for free. You signed on to their service and you got the Sunday ticket. And the NFL said, whoa, 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 you got to charge for this.
yeah,
And and Apple said, well, we're going to pay you. It's not that you're not getting paid, but we have more money than you, believe it or not. We have billions in suitcases over there. We have the greatest cash reserve in the world for any company. So we're going to pay you. We're not doing that, but you're not going to tell us how we're going to charge our customers, if at all.
yeah, they were
So,
subscribing to Apple streaming
mhm.
to get that. Um, I, you know, if you're gonna have somebody broadcast your product, you want to know what that's going to look like and how people are going to be able to access it because you want your product to grow.
Right.
That's why this switch now. This we're heading into this. We're in the streaming era, and right now, I don't think it's a very good product. Could
Yeah,
it could
but
it be a better product?
you
Sure.
think if Apple would have bought it and put it out there for just an additional thing on their Apple product, they would have made more money than ever the NFL.
Oh
They
yeah.
believe it because more their audience would have went from this, the people that are going to pay for it, to this, the people that are going to not have to pay that exorbitant amount of money. They're going to become fans. They're going to buy tickets. They're going to buy jerseys. They're going to buy hats.
They're gonna have it on tap on their phones. I mean, so I don't know the numbers, but I know Apple has baseball because once a week you can't watch the Yankees if you don't have Apple TV. And I refuse to acquiesce, especially since the Yankees suck and I'm not going to watch that. But I'm not going to pay to watch it. But I have seen it. I watched somebody the other night showed me on their phone. Apple has the broadcast, but also you have the option to listen to the Yankee broadcast.
Right.
So which is great. I've always said that there should be a way to, how you have the SAP button on the microphone if you want to
Right.
listen in another language. Why can't they do that with baseball games and the broadcast? I don't want to listen to Joe Buck. I want to hear John Sterling. I don't want to listen to Troy Aikman. I want to hear the Giants radio announcers. I don't, whatever it is. Um, I'd rather listen to Carl Banks than listen to the guys that are on Fox most of the time because you're going to get more insight. Whatever your choice, whatever you want to listen to, it's should that it's available. How many times as a kid did I find myself turning off the broadcast and hooking up my stereo so I could listen to the broadcast on the radio and still watch the game?
I
You
used to
know,
do that for the New York Rangers all the time when I watched the hockey games.
yeah,
The radio broadcasters, I don't remember who they were. It was so long ago. They were so much better than the television broadcasters,
and
especially.
yeah, I think they have the ability to make that happen, and Apple figured it out. So that might be something that is a draw, um, but you're I think they're making the market smaller, but the revenue may go up because people have the money to spend on it. I'm not going to spend the money on it. I get enough channels to watch as it is. I'm going to pay for more. You know, it's gotta come back to reality. You know, you used to be able to come home and turn the game on. I want to come home and turn the game on without having to worry about, I had to watch, at the bar. I have to hook up Amazon so we can watch when the Yankees are on Wednesday nights. We don't have Apple at the bar. And you go on and you have to click, you know, 6 or 7 things to find the broadcast and to turn it on. And do you want this? Yes. Do you want that? Yes. Do you want to watch the Yankees? Yes. Do you want to watch the live broadcast now? Yes. Is this what you want? Yeah, like, just I want to turn the game on. I just want to flip to a channel, turn the game on. That part of it is a little annoying, but I think over time that'll probably get better. I just don't like that they've headed down this road and have essentially left out, a whole generation of fans that are used to one way and expect them to just acquiesce, or they're willing to lose that part of the fan base to reach more people. There's something about it that just doesn't sit right with me that I don't. Maybe it's because I don't understand it, but I know at the bottom line is always money. So
Yeah, I don't know. Sooner or later, the NFL has to come back to reality a little bit. I don't.
I think they will because they have to look at look at what the Maras did offering the revenue sharing all those years ago. You know that's driven them all these years. That's what made this sport so watchable and entertaining. And the gambling, we haven't even talked about that. You're probably going to see partnerships now once this goes through. If it works, you're going to have Apple TV, whoever's streaming the game. You could do your betting right on the side, right there. I mean, they're already
Right.
giving you. They're giving you. Apple gives you odds. I don't know if they do it for football, but I know the other night when I was watching on my friend's phone, um,
UFC too. They
it
all do.
says each pitch it tells you the player's home run probability. So there's and again that's analytics, right? So there's going to be you're going to you're going to have the ability to have this information on tap, which is going to drive the gambling even more.
Yeah, well, gambling's an interesting part of it. I mean, it always exists, but not to the extent that it is now.
It's on
And
tap. It's at your
and that
fingertips.
and you have major owners, especially in the NFL, right? That are own whatever it's DraftKings
Yeah, you
or
had
FanDuel. You have
the
y-
the guy from
Jer-
New England,
Jerry
Robert
Jones,
Kraft, Jerry
Jerry
Jones.
Jones, and Kraft, who are um, both deeply invested into these gambling.
I can't believe that we're living in that era. It's like coming and watching the movie Last Boy Scout in real time. Ratings dropped. They needed something for fans, so they legalized gambling, and everybody's making money. Which I understand, making money. Oh, it's good for the economy, but there's a certain ethics to this that before existed, it just doesn't exist anymore. There were certain things that you just didn't do. You didn't question it. You didn't push it. It was just understood. This is not how we live in this country. Or this is not how we do things here. It's an ethics thing, and we have lost that completely.
Absolutely. I mean, the and I think we might have mentioned it last time. I remember the day when Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, I forget who the third was, they got suspended for being either a greeter from Major League Baseball after they retired, mind you. They're not even active players.
Yeah.
They get suspended from Major League Baseball because they were either greeters in a casino or were
Was
playing
it Duke
golf with
Snyder?
the
I think it might have been Duke
Duke
Snyder.
Snyder. It may have been the third. That was my thought, but I wasn't sure. And three of the greatest players of all time no longer in the game. Maybe they go to spring training every
Yeah,
year.
they don't talk about that story. Nobody really knows that story. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about, baseball then still had integrity for what it's worth. I know, people can bring up stories about players off the field, but on the field, it was, you don't do this. This is not acceptable. It was,
Well,
you know,
The commissioner of baseball is the worst, and I apologize if he ever hears me, but I think he's the worst. I don't think he
Yeah.
has any integrity into the game.
He completely mishandled Pete Rose, and they did nothing to really promote Shoeless Joe Jackson in the wake of that or before that. It was just clearly all right. And not that Pete deserved any sort of break. I don't think he did. But this commissioner and the last commissioner, and the media is culpable too, right? We went through the steroid era, and they're keeping these guys out of the Hall of Fame. And what they've done is they've created this like kind of a vacuum where look at who's getting into the Hall of Fame. Ichiro deserves it. Clearly, one of the best players ever. And CC before this era, you know, you can make the argument he did or didn't deserve it, but there are guys getting into the Hall of Fame now that are not Hall of Famers. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're keeping a whole generation of players out of the league because of steroids, but they knew it was going on. They put all three managers that had the biggest steroid users. They put Joe Torre, Cox, and LaRussa. Those guys were at the epicenter of the whole thing. And you put all three of them in the Hall of Fame. You can't tell me those guys didn't know their players were on steroids. They know they benefited from that. So where do you draw the line? Mike Piazza gets in, but this guy doesn't get in. This guy gets in and that guy doesn't get in. I mean, Harold Baines got in, not accusing him of steroids, because if he was on steroids, it's even worse. But he's not a Hall of Famer. And I'm a tough judge, and it has nothing to do with my Red Sox bias, but Jim Rice is a Hall of Famer. And Dom always says he was the best hitter for 10 years in the American League. Okay, well, but is he Aaron, Ruth, or Mays? Is he Mantle, DiMaggio, or Ted Williams? I just don't see that. So you know, you want to expand the sport, you want to make more money, where do you draw the line? Well, there used to be a clear line. There used to be ethics and integrity in baseball, and it is gone now. It's completely gone. And you throw in the gambling and you throw in the money from the streaming and all these other entities, and you've got a terrible product on the field. So in another 30 years, you're going to see guys get in the Hall of Fame. How's that guy a Hall of Famer?
It,
And the
it's
generation of kids watching now won't know any better.
it's being designed on the back of an envelope. You know what I mean? It's really fun, and the only guy that could do that is Abraham Lincoln. He wrote the Gettysburg Address on the way in the train, but beyond that, nobody can. And it really is whim without reason. Um, it's a trend, and these are all, and pretty much that's the theme of our show, and where there's all these trends that we believe are detrimental to the the ethics of the game, the professionalism of the game. I mean, I saw. I wish I could remember his name. I saw an umpire the other night call a pitch right down the middle,
Oh,
a
don't get me
ball,
started.
right down the middle. I mean, down the middle. I mean, the television guys were like, "Huh?"
Did you see? I think it was it last night or the night before? The first female umpire had her
Yeah,
first game behind home plate, and the first pitch, it wasn't even close. It was 6 inches inside. She called it a strike. The announcers didn't know what to say, and then they saved the baseball. They took the baseball off the field and saved it. And I just, it was like it looks so like they must have said, no matter where it is, call it a strike. We're saving the baseball. We're gonna put it up for auction. We're gonna sell it. Something's gonna. I couldn't believe what I was watching when I saw it.
I mean, does it really matter whether it was a ball or a strike to save the baseball?
It doesn't. It certainly doesn't. It shouldn't. It shouldn't matter that she's female either. Can you call balls and strikes? Because if you can't, see ya. I mean, I think they did it as a. I think they did it because they know what's coming. They're getting rid of umpires, right? You're going to have an automated strike zone. It should already be in existence. Today I saw, because I hadn't watched any football preseason anyway, I saw what they're doing with the first down marker. And they've taken the guys with the chains off the field completely. And
Really?
they had, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. because you got to figure those guys have to be there anyway. But instead, I'm assuming there's something in the football. Maybe there's a chip in the football, but it's an animated screen where the football is placed on the field at whatever mark, and then it shows you the distance to the first down. It says 9 inches, 10 inches, and that's how they're measuring for first downs now. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what I watched. And, that's a cool thing, I guess. I don't know why they had to take the guys with the chains off the field, although there was some discrepancies with the chain gangs the last couple of years where people were doing videos on them, moving the yard markers and not being in the right position. So maybe the gambling has something to do with it to make it more precise.
Right.
But I was shocked when I saw that.
Hmm.
But the more I saw it like 3 times, and it made me realize if they're going to do that for, it's no different than balls and strikes, and they have the technology to do this. So why not utilize it? You could still have an umpire behind home plate for calls at the plate. You can still have an umpire behind home plate to, the pitcher balked, whatever it is, he's got to call all the other, stuff. They don't have to call balls and strikes. There's, it's funny to listen to people argue about how baseball didn't include XYZ back in the 30s and 40s, and the players today are so much better. But then when you say, I want an automated strike zone, they lose their minds. To me, if all this technology was available when Abner Doubleday invented baseball, we'd be using it. Instant replay, whether the guy touched the base or not, balls and strikes, everything. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You want to get the call right. If it's,
Absolutely.
so, look at
Works in tennis. Works in tennis.
yeah. So why not use it for baseball? They're so far behind, and it just makes you wonder that they don't want to spend the money on these things. They haven't figured out how to monetize it. So they're not going to make it available, which is just it's so silly.
Maybe they don't know how to control it.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder sometimes because when you watch it on TV, you see the frame, right? You just see the frame outline of the strike zone. And home plate has depth, right? Home plate is 18 inches across, and I think it's 18 inches deep. Or maybe it's 22 inches. I can't remember the dimensions, and then you have where that volume of space fits according to where the batter is standing in the
Right.
batter's box, as well as, the size of the player. But it seems to me that they've got that narrowed down, that they've got the size of the strike zone, you know, pretty much intact. So if they have it, then why not use it? Just eliminate all this, you know, other stuff and take the error out of it. I don't expect umpires to be perfect, but some of these guys miss calls that are just, I mean, you can't miss calls right down the plate. You can't miss that. Maybe, all right, the catcher was setting up outside, which you don't really see that a lot anymore. The catcher set up outside, the umpire is behind the catcher, and the ball was to the left. And even though it was over the plate, maybe it looked outside to the umpire. To me, it's inexcusable. You can't miss. You can't miss. And it takes, the catcher framing the pitch. He brings it up, he brings it down. You just take all that away.
And if you question him, he throws you out.
And if no questioning balls and strikes. Well, wait a minute. If you're going to make that rule, then use the automated strike zone. Then we won't question anything. We'll just all agree to it, and then that's it.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of ills of the world and many different sports that we're talking about now.
I know you
So
wanted to get back to Jerry.
yeah, well, we'll do that. I think we'll save that for another night. I mean, more is going to happen. And he's talking about Jerry Jones and football. But on our next show, which is 2 weeks from now, the third week in August, you'll see that,
Mika
football will be
Parsons might have been
closer.
traded by then.
Yeah, maybe. All right, everybody. All right. Justin,
Thanks a
thank you
lot,
very
Judge.
much. We'll be back. I'll play our theme song on the way out. And thank you very much. And I'll
Thank
see
you
you.
for having
I'll
me.
see you soon. All right.
See you soon.